Well Together podcast. Welcome to Well Together podcast. In each episode, inspiring conversations from wellness experts will guide you towards a better life. If you are ready, let's start our healthy life journey. In this episode,
we are excited to introduce StephenMcDermott, an osteopath who combines his passion for helping people with his deep understanding of how the body works. Stephen says, osteopathy is for everybody. So, what is osteopathy? How does it address the root causes of pain in the body? How can osteopathic treatments provide relief from a wide variety of pains and contribute to lifelong physical, mental, and emotional well-being? If you're curious about the answers, tune in. The journey to well-being together begins now.
We welcome you to the third episode of this season. We have an esteemed guest, an expert osteopath, StephenMcDermott. We are so excited to ask him a dozen questions about his distinguished expertise. Welcome, Stephen.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Well, let's dive right in with our first question. What is osteopathy, and how does it differ from traditional medical approaches in promoting a pain-free lifestyle?
Well, osteopathy in its simplest form is the relief of pain through the gentle articulation of muscle and joints. And it's actually a therapy that was developed by a man called Arthur Taylor, who was an American, and in 1885 he actually founded the therapy, which he called osteopathy. And osteopathy, it's probably not the greatest name ever given to a therapy because people just think it's bone. So osteo is bone, path is pathology. But if you think about it, it's actually everything connected in the body itself. So to answer your question, how it differs, for me, the medical model seems to be quite reductionist. So they look at your issue in isolation. So if you've back pain, for example, they won't consider any other part of the body. They typically just look at the back as the sole issue and will typically give you painkillers. That might actually relieve the pain, but the problem is still there. The reason for me that's causing it. Most of the time, they don't even touch you, you know? So an osteopath has a more holistic approach. So I'll assess you physically, mentally, and emotionally. So when you come in for a treatment with me, I'll ask your full health history. I then do a physical examination, and I'll be able to see where the problem is by looking at your spine and its movement. It's almost like an X-ray, but better because I can also feel if there are any rotations in your vertebrae. The X-ray won't reveal that typically. And this is usually what's causing your pain, you know. I'll also consider diet, lifestyle and stress and how this is affecting your body, which we also discuss together. And then I also consider your systemic health. So I want to know about your heart, your lungs, your digestion and any serious illnesses or injuries. And then test all joints, what's moving, what's not moving, and where there is any imbalance. So when I get a person to a good place and they're taking the advice I've given, such as stretching, meditation possibly, diet, and how to relieve stress, then they are looking after themselves. And for me, healthcare is self-care, whereas the medical model is basically come to us when you're sick. My model is about maintaining your health, so doing what I've mentioned above, but also coming monthly for a session with me or a therapist I've recommended, which keeps you in good health. So for me, this is the proper model of healthcare.
I think we have to underline your statement, healthcare is self-care. So if we consider the interconnectedness of physical, mental, and emotional well-being, how does osteopathy address the root causes of pain in the body?
If someone complains of headache, neck, shoulder, or back pain, 99% of therapists would treat that area, but typically that's not where the problem started, or the original sin occurred, as I call it. So how I look at the body is different to most. Think of your spine as a wall, and the wall sits on top of your pelvis. If your pelvis isn't balanced, then whatever you do to the wall won't last. So for me, the most important thing is to fix the pelvis, then I can easily help to fix other issues. And this is how you get long-lasting relief. I can usually feel if a person is suffering with anxiety or depression. I feel their shallow breathing and their energy is heavy. So going back to your question about interconnectedness, if we think what anxiety is, it's always being alert and looking out for danger, or something bad is going to happen. So our breathing is very shallow. This causes our muscles and ribs of respiration or breathing to become extremely tight, and then we are in a vicious circle of not being able to breathe properly, which holds us in an anxious state. Osteopathy helps to open up and relax all these ribs and muscles, and the person feels much calmer. This can help them to go deeper in their meditation, or able to exercise more and have more energy because they're not hyperventilating all the time and wasting energy. And we have two parts to our nervous system, the rest and digest part and the fight or flight. Most people have heard about the fight or flight. When we suffer with anxiety, our nervous system is in this fight or flight mode, which is literally burning up your energy. And osteopathy is able to bring you back into balance through specific techniques I have to calm your system down.
Listening to your explanation, it's clear that well-being is not a one-dimensional approach. This brings us to a related question. What is the connection between inflammation and pain? And how can lifestyle factors, like detoxification, enhance osteopathic treatments for long-term pain relief?
Yeah, great question. Inflammation is caused by many factors, including diet, lack of exercise, a poorly functioning digestive system, and of course maintained by stress. So very simply, sugar is fuel for inflammation's fire, and inflammation causes pain. It's a very simple concept. This is where people can control their pain levels by having a better diet or going on a detox program. I encourage a food diary, which means tracking for a week or two what you're eating daily. Then you can identify what you're eating too much of that's not helping, or even too little of. When I'm doing my physical examination, I'm very mindful of the area of your spine that affects digestion and excretion. If there is a problem there, it can cause constipation and diarrhea, which will leave you tired. And a lot of depression is put down to how our stomach is operating. So if we are not getting enough nutrition from our food into our bodies, then we will be tired, causing the body to be stressed, maybe not getting enough sleep, which can lead over time to depression, or is definitely part of the problem.
I think it is the right time to ask the inevitable question. How does stress impact the body's experience of pain?
Yes, good question. So to follow on, if you are exercising and in pain afterwards, it's possible you are misaligned in your body. So this will cause you to have to work harder to exercise, or even to walk. Your body must work harder, thus causing your body to stress and again lead to tiredness. And if you're stressed, then your experience of pain can become stronger because your nervous system is in that stressed state. So you've had a busy day at work, dealing with a difficult manager or client, you've rushed your lunch and not digested it properly. You drove home really fast and gone to the gym on the way, then you've gone home to cook dinner and then answer more emails, and of course somewhere in there you have to find time for your family and children. This is not how we should live our lives, but unfortunately the abnormal has become normal. I think if you're going through a difficult period, you need to slow down everything. Look at your life and see where you can break the cycle of constant stress. Yes, people nowadays are leading very busy lives. They have a high standard of living that must be maintained. Their children are in many different clubs and activities, and it's just go, go, go all the time. I like to identify with my patients, where can you get a moment to take a minute just to breathe properly? It's something we just don't know how to do. And I teach them a very simple but powerful technique that helps to calm down the fight or flight part that causes us to be anxious or stressed.
Well Together Podcast.
Dear listener, if you're considering joining us for a mental wellness retreat at the TheLifeCo centres, we have an exciting surprise for you. Visit TheLifeCo.com to discover more about what awaits you.
Psychological stimuli are not the only source of stress, right? What do you recommend for avoiding other stress factors which can cause pain?
Water is such a basic thing to advise, but from my experience, so many people forget to drink water during the day. I have people tell me they are drinking 4 or 5 litres per day, and for me, this is crazy. But that's the advice they found online. If you're drinking that much water, the body actually cannot absorb this much and will simply pass it out quickly. But unfortunately, it also flushes out good nutrition from the body too. A good way to judge if you're getting enough fluids is to pay attention to the colour of your urine. So the darker it is, the more dehydrated you are. So you might notice after drinking, say, 3 glasses of water during the day, your urine is pale yellow or even clear. Well, this is a good indication that quantity is good for you. The next person might need 5 glasses of water. Everybody's body is different. So a well-hydrated body means the body isn't tired, and the bone, which is mainly water, is in good health. And also, in my experience, 15 to 20% of the causes of depression is due to long-term dehydration. Coffee too can cause us stress, believe it or not. Anyone who suffers with anxiety should not drink coffee, and this is something I advocate strongly. Now look, life is short and I absolutely love coffee, but I had to cut it out to 1 per day, because if I had more, it would keep me awake at night, but also it affects the body's natural boost times. So what I mean by this is, around 8 AM, 1 PM and 5:30 PM, the body naturally dumps hormone into the blood that gives us a boost. Now you heard of people say, oh, I can't do without my coffee during the day. Well, they are right, they can't. What's happened is over time, their body has decided, okay, I'm not needed here. Coffee is doing that job, so it actually stops the boosting process and the person becomes reliant on coffee, and it's a vicious cycle. Addicted, basically. So more advice is don't eat past 6 and stop eating late at night. This gives your digestive system time to rest, and over time your body will start to live off the toxin and bad fat. Intermittent fasting is really worth a lot more investigation, I think.
It's quite obvious that nutrition is one of the key factors in supporting the lasting benefits of osteopathy. What other lifestyle modifications do you recommend?
There was a large study done over a very long period in the City of London years ago, where they tracked people who sat all day at an office compared with people who moved around for their work. And I'm sometimes a bit scared to tell people this because it could frighten them, given the amount of people that work in offices and sit all day. But they found that those who moved daily compared to those who sat over a period of 15 to 20 years all day, usually in an office, had a 5 to 7 year shorter lifespan. So think of us as bags of water. If you had a stagnant water in a pond or something and it never moved, I mean, it would become unhealthy and not pure. And that's the same with our bodies. We're designed to move, the same as a machine. And if it doesn't move, it becomes rusty and won't work properly. So we need to keep our joints well oiled up, and that's through good diet, low stress levels, and good exercise daily. And it could just be walking for 30 minutes, but done consistently, daily, over a long period, and that's key for me. I also advise to get any mental health issues that are in the past or happen in the future sorted out or dealt with best you can. Talk to a professional if needed. Forgive and make peace with that problem. Move on. If you are angry, this then leads to frustration and ultimately depression, leading to poor diet choices and no exercise. Emotional issues not dealt with properly manifest as pain or illness. It's almost like the body is saying you need to change your habits and mindset. So by looking after our mental health, we have a good physical health and vice versa. The medical model of health care don't consider this. People think that they are separate, but there's no separation between the mind and the body.
That's great, and should be highlighted again for sure. We think that they are separate, but there is no separation between the mind and the body. Considering your vast experience spanning over 15 years, we're sure you have many stories to share. Could you tell us a success story where osteopathy significantly improved a patient's quality of life?
Oh, yeah. Wow. I mean, that's a difficult one to answer because I've seen so many miracles due to osteopathy over the 15 years since I've been involved. And health can mean so many different things to different people. My youngest patient actually is a baby of 1 month old who isn't feeding properly. She had a very traumatic birth and was a suction delivery. And from my assessment, I could find a strain in her neck, which occurred during delivery. So health for her was to feed properly. My oldest patient was 96, and for them getting out to the garden and walking to the local shop was health for them. So that was our goal, to achieve this by keeping her hips moving and other joints in good mobility, and give encouragement. It's very true, what we don't use, we lose. But the typical patient I receive, and I've seen here at TheLifeCo, has been someone aged 35 to 55 who has pain and has been unable to get relief anywhere else. They had it for so long as they can remember and have seen all the specialists, but now they have some mental health issues and basically life isn't fun anymore. And these are the typical profile I find osteopathy can help with the most. Look, there's been hundreds of amazing results, too many to remember, but actually one that sticks out most as well is a lady I met while I was working and travelling around the Caribbean earlier this year. So some of the smaller islands don't have any therapists trained to a high standard, and she had a 25-year history of daily headaches and had travelled over and back to America many times for operations and to see so-called specialists, but nothing helped. So she found out about me through Facebook that I was on the island and got in contact. So most headaches are caused physically by rotation at the top of the neck, and this area affects the nerve and blood supply to the head, and especially the front of the head where most people experience headaches. So anyway, she had a massive rotation in her upper cervicals, C1 and 2, and I was easily able to fix it. She had one session, and when I contacted her the next day, it was gone. I contacted her 3 months later, and she was still pain-free, which was amazing, but in my eyes a very simple issue to resolve.
We are recording this mind-opening conversation at the TheLifeCo Bodrum. Would you like to share a few words about how our guests have benefited from the osteopathy sessions you've provided here?
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to understand what happened. I had a lovely lady, it was her second treatment with me since I arrived last week. I've seen her this morning actually. She had come with neck pain, but a huge emotional issue as well. She lost her twin to suicide a couple of years ago and didn't really talk about it on the last session, but this morning as I opened up her body a little bit more and started to open up the muscle and so on, she started to speak a little bit more and started to sort of relay about the emotional strain she had around the guilt and the grief and heartache and so many other things. And she had mentioned that she had reflux. And I've actually been experiencing reflux myself for the last couple of weeks. I researched a really specific technique to release the stomach, which gets caught in the diaphragm. And I started to do this technique on her. And to cut a long story short, she started. I've felt pain in my body, which was actually linked to her body. And I know that's hard to believe. So for the last 10 years, I've always felt people's pain. So if you came with back pain, I'd feel back pain. If you came with shoulder pain, I'd feel shoulder pain. So I started feeling pain in my stomach. And we'd release that area and she'd have a huge emotional release, which was sort of crying and a lot of memories coming up. And then I just told her to tune into her body. And I started to feel the different pains around my body. So when I'd feel the shoulder pain, for example, I'd tell her to go to her shoulder. And again, she'd have a huge emotional release. I'd tell her I feel fear and anxiety on my chest. I'd tell her to go there. And then she would feel that and actually have a huge emotional release with lots of memories of her twin. So for me, this was actually the most amazing experience in osteopathy since I started, because at the end, she stood up and she said, "Stephen, I've actually feel like I've released everything I've always tried to release over the last 5 years since that episode." So that has been, I think that's one to remember, yeah? So I think that's number one. So that experience and that result absolutely shows for sure the connection between the emotional, the mental and the physical body. They're all one and they're all interconnected, and through working with the physical, you can really help the mental and the emotional.
I wish we didn't have to, but we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much, Stephen. It was a pleasure to have you here for this lovely, insightful, and mind-opening conversation.
Well, great, and thank you for listening to me. And I hope if some of my advice just helps one person, I'd be very happy with that. And I hope to be back in Turkey and Bodrum quite soon. Thank you.
Well Together podcast. Inspiring stories from TheLifeCo.
Let's listen to insights from Ersin Pamuk Souza, CEO of TheLifeCo Wellbeing Centres, as he discusses the core principles of holistic healing.
Real healing needs a holistic approach. Real healing needs an integrative approach. What does integrative, holistic means? It means you need to include your relations, your food, your mental state, intention, your experience of your surrounding, the nature, the way you breathe, the way you eat, the way you drink water. So everything is part of your healing. You see, we got a kind of understanding that the healing, only you get a kind of small pill, then you are done, you heal. No, that's not like, that's the symptom management. Real healing, you need to care everything. You need to care everything around your presence to go back to where you were. So chronic diseases is a big thing nowadays. It's 93% of all the deaths in this world. So you need to understand those diseases takes 15, 20 years to build up, and to repair them may take, to get it cured, to treat them may take maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, maximum around 8 months. So you need to invest after symptom management. You need to invest for real healing, and it could be a good sign after 3 weeks. You will see after 3 weeks you don't need to manage your symptom. You're already good shape. It's going well. But going to the 100% good state, you need to invest in your health in a longer period.
Well Together podcast.
Are you ready to create the best version of yourself? Your transformation journey starts at TheLifeCo. With over 18 years of experience, TheLifeCo Wellbeing is committed to helping you achieve optimal health and well-being with a unique range of programs and retreats. Holistic well-being experiences that promote longevity and meaning in your life await you at TheLifeCo centers in Bodrum, Antalya, and Phuket. Visit thelifeco.com today to start your wellness journey.
Thank you for listening Well Together podcast.